So I got questions for you. Oh, number one, this is Ralph Blackford. Ralph Blackford is a survivor of the U.S.S. Lexington CV-2 that was lost at the Battle of Coral Sea in May of 1942.
88.
Um,
Never forget that date.
so what do you remember? What do you remember the most about it?
About the battle?
About the whole. What was like before the battle? What was it like to be on the CV-2?
Well, to start with, I was never on anything that big to start with. In fact, coming from Indiana, I knew rowboats or things like that. I didn't really know ships.
Right.
And up until I got to Great Lakes, where I took my training, the biggest thing that I saw there was still a rowboat where there was 4 or 5 of us out there rowing at one time.
Right.
And then I think from there, probably the biggest thing I saw was the ferry going from Bremerton, Washington, or Seattle to Bremerton.
So what was it like to see the Lexington for the first time?
Well, it's like I said, my God, look at the size of it. You can't imagine. I'm in a stake truck, and they got sea bags sitting in there, and me and a couple other guys, and we were sitting on those sea bags. That's why I said, my God, look at the size of that thing. It looked bigger than the cranes that was there loading stuff on it. So it was just huge.
What was your job on the Lexington?
When I first went aboard, I was assigned to V-1 Division, which was basically one of the aviation divisions. But really, my first job was mess cook.
Okay.
And at that time, we didn't have the galleys on there like they have now. We had to we set up tables in our mess compartments, or sleeping compartments.
Okay.
We had a container over here, we put our sea bags in, and until we was actually assigned to a division, we had our sea bags, or hammocks swung up in there, and we slept in that same compartment. After I was assigned to the compartment and was still mess cooking, we would get the tables down. We had china. We put the china down on the table. We'd go down and get a big coffee pot full of coffee, have it there on the table for the guys to have coffee. And they'd have one of the senior POs that would be assigned to the table. You take care of that table and the guys on the table. So we had to run clear down to the galley. After we just set up the table, we'd run clear down to the galley. We'd come back with trays of food, or trains filled with food. We'd set them on the table. When they got empty, you go back and get some more. And I can remember coming one day, I'm coming through there with a platter full of steak. And we was clear back in one of the after compartments.
Okay.
So we had the furthest distance to go to get food. So you tried to make time, and I'm going through there, and I stubbed my toe on one of the hatches, and I fell. Steak and me and gravy was just going across the linoleum deck at that time. That was before they took all the linoleum out when the war started.
Right.
So it's things like that. But then I was assigned to where I was working with Petty Officer First Class. His name was Griffith. And I have saw him at the different reunions where I went. He was plane captain for an SOC. It was a float type plane, or you could convert it for use on a carrier or float, either one.
Right.
If it was float, we'd hang it over the side and lower it into the water with the crane, and then it'd take off from the water. If we was going into, say, some place like Bremerton, when we went down the straits, as they launch it, he'd fly into some airport there by Bremerton, Washington. But we had another one that was called a JRF. It had a pontoon built into it.
Right.
And I've seen the captain fly that thing, and he always had to have a pilot. He landed that in Long Beach Harbor one time, and I think it bounced 3 or 4 times going across that harbor. I felt sorry for the guy that had to ride in that pontoon part, because he couldn't ride it, and yet he would have a pilot with him and a mech that would be riding down below.
Wow.
So, but that was our ship's plane. When the squadrons come aboard, that was an entirely different thing.
All right. So when did you join the Navy?
1940.
So you were in the Navy when the Japanese attacked. Where were you?
We was on Lexington, and we was on our way to Midway with a squadron of Marine planes that we were taking to Midway.
What was it like to find out that the Japanese had attacked? What were the people saying?
I could tell you exactly what the...
Well, this may go to high school kids, so we gotta...
The air officer, well, we got the news. The captain announced, come over the loudspeaker system, the Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, and we're to change our plans. So we had part of those planes up on deck already. We had to put them all back down on the hangar deck, and the air officer, he's on his microphone, scram cast. In other words, a scramble cast was having everybody come back no matter how you could, and when you get here, we'll land you. So as soon as they come on board, they were...
Hold on just a second. Okay, now go ahead.
As soon as they came on board, they loaded them with live ammunition. If they had dummy bombs or anything,
right,
that was all taken off. It was loaded with live ammunition, live bombs, and sent out immediately in search patterns.
How close were you all to Pearl Harbor when it happened?
We was only about 400 miles from Midway.
Yeah, y'all were pretty close.
Given us 3 or 4 hours more, and we'd have the planes off and on the way to Midway. So, which would have probably been a help for Midway when they was in there.
Yeah.
So, but we got them out. They were sent out and on patrol, and we were probably very fortunate that day because we were ordered south, and they hit and doubled back and went back the way they came.
Okay.
If we would have went north, we'd have run right into the whole Japanese fleet.
So, yeah, that wouldn't have been good.
No, because there would have been 1 carrier, 2 cruisers, and maybe 4 destroyers against the whole Japanese fleet that was up there. That wouldn't have been any contest at all.
No, so, we'd have lost earlier than we did.
Yeah. As it was, we went south, and the only thing that we saw that looked like a ship was a barge, and they did attack the barge. I don't think they done much damage to it.
Okay, so now we go forward. When y'all pulled into Pearl, I'm sure, before you went.
Oh, the first time we pulled into Pearl, what a mess. I think it was, I don't remember now which one was in the channel, but they beached it far enough up on the side of the channel that we could get in and out. And when we saw Battleship Road, that was just something that you can't believe. And of course, normally we would have tied up what they call 1010, which was on, I don't know whether that's the north side of Fort Island or south side. But anyway, we were right next to the officers' quarters on Fort Island, and they pulled the old Utah in there, which is used for bombing ship, and tied it up at our dock. and it got hit with all the torpedoes that were supposedly going for the Lexington. Just because they didn't know we'd left.
Right, yeah. They didn't know you were at sea.
We left Friday night after dark.
See, the Hornet and the Lexington, weren't they all the two primary carriers out of Pearl at that time, or in that area?
Well, the Enterprise was on its way out.
Okay.
In fact, at the time, the Enterprise was trying to land planes, and some of our guys were shooting at them because they didn't realize the Enterprise was in the area, and anything that was in the air they were shooting at. So some of the Enterprise planes were shot at, and they might have knocked one or two of them down. I don't know.
Okay. So, war's going. Everybody's really hating the Japanese. Let's talk about Coral Sea.
Well, the Battle of the Coral Sea, actually, we had some time before that.
Okay, go ahead.
We were trying to sneak into Rabaul and hit their air base there. And we were spotted by what they called a Japanese Betty. It was a Japanese flying boat. And once we found out we'd been spotted, we knew there'd be somebody coming out from Rabaul after us. And they sent out high-level bombers. That's when Butch O'Hare became an ace. He shot down 5 planes, just seesawing through them like that. And he ran out of ammunition, or he got more. But, and one of the things, you talk about is cool skipper. Frederick Sherman stood there on the deck with a pair of binoculars watching some of those bombers coming in like that. He said, when I give you the word, helmsman, put her over hard right. And, okay, helmsman, for hard right. So we swung. Those bombs just fell off to the stern to one side. But he waited until he could see that they released to put the helm over. So that's
nerve.
That's what I call.
That's a game of chicken.
Well, yeah, in a way.
Who flinches first?
But the fact that he was standing there with binoculars watching them, and he could tell when it was done, and of course, part of that turkey shoot we could see from the deck. Of course, now my job was up on the bridge with the air officer and the captain, and in fact, there was only 4 of us on the bridge during most of these battles. That was the captain, the helmsman, and the air boss, and me. And there might have been a signalman back on the after part of the bridge, but we never see him. And all we had for protection up there, because at that time, when we went into battle, all the glass up in the bridge area was lowered, and what I had was, let's say, 3/8 or 1/4 inch of steel between me and anything coming flying. And same way with the air boss. I'd be sitting up there behind an alidade with headphones on, and I'm relaying messages from him to all the flight deck stations. The captain would give him a message, and he relayed them to me, and round and round we go. So, then the next real engagement we made was when they flew over the hump at, I was going to say Guadalcanal, that's not right. It's the island north of Australia, though,
okay,
where we was on one side. They flew our planes over the mountains and attacked the Japanese coming down on the other side.
Okay.
And that was Salomon and Ley, whatever
the Solomon Islands.
And then after that, that's when we got into to the problem at Coral Sea.
All right, so.
When we got into there,
Yes, sir.
that's the first time the 2, prime vessels or the main vessels of a fleet never saw each other. because we're 75 to 125 miles apart. So we never saw the ships of the Japanese, and the Japanese never saw us. It was all from the air. When we were spotted, it was all from the air. So in other words, our plane was attacking their carriers, their planes was attacking us in New Yorktown, and so that was the big battle. And as it turned out, we got the worst part of it as far as torpedoes and bomb hits. Yorktown had a bomb hit in the flight deck and couldn't really conduct air operations. So some of them got back, would land alongside and would be picked up. And we were steaming back to Australia until the aviation gas started leaking out. So they had pressured the gas lines at various times. If they found a leak, they closed it off right away. But apparently one had been missed somewhere along the line. We don't know. But anyway, once that aviation gas started spreading and fumes started spreading, that put fire any place those fumes were. And that's when we also lost the speed on the boilers or whatever.
Lost your pressure on the boilers.
I'm not familiar with the engineering terms because I was never an engineer.
See, that's me. I'm not. I'm an engineer, so that part I get. And
well, that would be the way with my son-in-law, because he worked with subs, so he
Yes, sir.
knew the sub parts. So, or my grandson would know some of the engineering because he studied at Purdue University. And
sorry.
Anyway.
Okay, so what caused the initial damage? Was it torpedoes or bombs on the Lexington?
Our main damage was torpedoes.
That's what I thought.
And to me, there's still a question of exactly how many. And I've heard it anywhere from 3 to 6.
Yeah.
When I've looked through official stuff that I can find on TV, and you can see official logs and official reports from the various departments on there. It's all on TV.
Yes, sir.
If you want to, or not TV, but computers, if you want to go look for it.
I've done a little bit, but
I think at that time the official count was 5.
Right.
And I know at one time the engineering officer was a Commander Junker. He called the bridge and he says, "Captain, if we've got to take any more, let's take them on the starboard side." So everything was coming to the port side, which is left.
right. Yes,
So,
sir.
well, some of the kids might not know that. But,
You're right. You're absolutely right. I forget you're talking to them too.
Yeah. Port starboard. So, in other words, we had one, what I call the most serious bomb hit,
Okay.
was on our port gun galley. That ship was laid down as a battle cruiser and then converted to a carrier.
Right.
So it's different than the current carriers, and there was also what they called a straight deck carrier. There was no place where they could launch and land planes at the same time. If it was landing planes, you land them all, send them forward, and then move them back so they're ready to launch. Now then they can launch them with a catapult and shoot them off from one direction and be landing them over here in the other direction. But I sort of lost my train of thought. But,
Okay. The damage. Okay, we got the bomb on the gun magazine.
Yeah, we got the bomb on that gun deck. It killed 14 Marines on that and just mangled that whole. We had one other smaller bomb hit aft by what had been our after turret, or back beyond the stack. But that didn't cause that much damage, and I don't, in my estimation, I don't think either one of those bomb hits caused that much of a fire.
Do you think the fuel leaks were the biggest problem?
The fuel leaks was the main culprit. because after the battle was over, we were steaming for Australia, making almost 30 knots. And then, we just lost all our power. So apparently the gas and the fumes were getting to the point where it was in the engine rooms and was causing us, they couldn't stay in them to control the engine, so you just lose your power.
How many men were lost?
I've heard 1 to 1.5%, and out of a crew of about 3,000, that's a very small amount when you consider what all we did have.
But still,
we lost more people out of the squadrons that never found a place to land or were shot down, things like that. So we lost.
now,
I don't know how many people was lost out of the squadrons entirely.
now, the next couple of questions, or maybe questions you hadn't been asked. Number one, what ship rescued y'all?
I was picked up by a boat, I say a motorboat. I'm not sure which it was off of because we had 8 cruisers out there, or 4 or 8. But I was picked up and taken to the Astoria, which is a light cruiser. And I was able to step right off the gunwale of the boat right onto the deck of the ship.
Next question. Of course, you had pride for the Lexington.
Yeah.
Anybody who's never been in the Navy can understand
Oh, yeah.
the pride a sailor has for their ship. What was your feelings when you found out that the crew that was building the Cabot had decided to call her the Lexington in honor of y'all?
Oh, as far as I'm concerned, I just thought it was great that the name was going on. And I'm quite sure at the time that CV-16 come out and was engaged in battle with the Japanese, they probably wondered what was going on. This thing has been sunk, and we've even been told it's been sunk. But
That's the reason she's the Blue Ghost.
So, yeah, because actually we were sunk in May, but it wasn't revealed to the general public until September.
I didn't know that.
I happened to be home on leave at the time that it was officially announced that it was sunk. And my dad was a welder in a powder plant down in Alabama, and he called my uncle and says, I hear the Lexington's been sunk. Have you heard from our boy? He said, he's sitting here in the house. You want to talk to him? So this is my uncle. I had 2 uncles. They were my dad's brothers, Frank and George. And the youngest one, and he and I were only a couple of years apart. So I spent a lot of time with my grandmother as far as I go. So in other words, when I went home to Union City, Indiana, which is a small town, everybody knew everybody else. And so when I went home, well, glad to see you. And then when the news come out, well, immediately the newspaper there in town, they wanted to talk to me. And because they knew I was in town, and when they come out, the Lexington was sunk, well, then they interviewed me, and I've still got a copy of the paper that come out with my picture on the front page. At that time, I was still 3rd-class yeoman, and so I've carried that around for a lot of years. It's getting pretty tattered anymore.
All right, Mr. Blackford, you were on TV. I know this here recently, and you told a story to the TV crew. We've only got a couple of minutes where this camera is going to say enough. But can you do me a favor and tell the story of the ice cream?
Well, what it was, we were given the order to get ready to abandon ship. So everybody was to meet on the flight deck. So we're on the after end of the flight deck, and I don't know, somebody got a crazy idea. Hey, let's raid the geedunk stand. So they go down and they get all the ice cream cans out of the ice cream equipment. They brought it up on the flight deck, and they're cutting it out with knives and whatnot. Get you a handful and eat ice cream. So we was getting rid of the ice cream. No sense leaving it there to waste. So it's going to go down anyway. So we ate that, but we found out very shortly that ice cream and salt water don't mix too good. So,
Well, I really appreciate you taking some time out. This is going to be used to teach. I have the most admiration you'd ever imagine for World War II veterans. I think the word hero gets thrown around, and I know you're going to disagree with me, and I don't care, but I don't think the word hero gets thrown around way too much. And I believe that our veterans from World War II, that you guys really are heroes. I mean that.
I think there's a lot more. There's a lot more of a hero than I am. But
We can agree to disagree.
yeah.
But thank you again. I'm going to shake your hand.
See, that's just for your information. And when I got on that troop transport, we're circling around over off the coast of Casablanca, coast of Morocco.
Yes, sir.
The Missouri's lobbing shells across the Atlas Mountains and sunk the Jean Bart in the harbor at Casablanca. And we went in there. We weren't the only troop transport in the group.
Right.
But we went in there and tied up alongside and disembarked all our troops. Then when we left there, now we were able to steam at about 27 knots. And it had been the S.S. Count of Gratney, which has been an Italian luxury liner. In fact, there was a plaque in the deck when I went aboard there for duty where the purser's office would have been up in front. That Mayor Jimmy Walker and the movie star was married in that ship.
Where did you go after the Lexington?
That's where I went.
Okay, the troop carrier.
To the Monticello. I thought it was a new light cruiser built in Philadelphia. Otherwise, I'd have went with the air boss where he was going as commanding officer of the other ship. He was going to a smaller carrier. Sort of, I say jeep carrier. I don't know.
No, what do they call them? The jeep carriers or truck carriers? They were the
smaller.
Yeah.
Sometimes they was carrying planes just from here to there. That was before they had much of the helicopter use, something like they have now.
Right.
This is some of the things that have evolved over the time. That's like us, when that Air Force guy I'm playing golf with, what kind of planes did you have on there? I said, F1, F2, or 3, TBDs, SBC-2Us, SBDs. He said, my God, you had old ones, didn't you? I said, we had antiques, really, when you consider going to war.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, and you were going against Zeros, which at the time
was
top of the line.
Some of the best aircraft probably in the world at
Top
that
of the
time.
line. But they underestimated us.
So.
In the manufacturing might.
Yeah.
I mean, how many Essex class carriers were built during World War II?
I don't really know.
8, maybe?
I would say they were turning them out a lot faster than they are now.
I mean, they came out in a hurry, and that's one of them right there. It's a serious